All right, so I thought I would give just a kind of a midway or probably closer to 75% of the way done update. So what I have done here is I have joined some of the church pew material into tabletops. And so this is one of four, and that'll just sit atop here. I do have this coming together in kind of a craftsman style or mission style design, and luckily I had just enough out of three church pews. I can tell you that this is the scrap. That's all I've got left, are just these odd cutoffs. So really maximized the material that came out of the pews, and that drove a few different design elements that I had here. Because when you have a finite amount of material, sometimes size can get constrained based on, your total project. So, but you'll see these have a nice mission style or craftsman style end. It will have stretchers here. This is another one, and this would be inset. So it's going to really, kind of dress up the look, but also provide, a lot of structural integrity once they're done. And right now I just have this clamped together, but these will come together in this fashion so that it will help to prevent any racking and so forth. And then of course the table will go on top. And when I get to that point, what I'll tell you is I'm going to use tabletop fasteners. I may end up making them. I don't know what I have sitting in my drawer in terms of the number of either Z clips or otherwise. But yeah, so that's where we're at. It's been a lot of sanding, a lot of shaping, taking all the edges off, all these individual parts so that they're nice to the touch. But we're gonna crack on now. So I've just got to do a little bit of round over here on some of these parts. So again, that they're, nice to the touch. And appreciate you sticking with me. This is probably going to be, a little bit longer video when I get it all edited down. I'll certainly try to keep it succinct, but really do appreciate you coming along. And this would be a good time to ask, if you're finding value in what you're seeing on the channel, do me a favor. Only about 10 or 12% of the people who watch are subscribed, and it would sure help me to reach more people if you could take a moment and just subscribe to the channel. And if you like what you're seeing, a like wouldn't hurt either. So I appreciate it, and we'll crack on. Okay, so what I'm going to tell you is I've abandoned the idea of sanding all of this stuff down. So there is a little bit of surface deviation where the glue up has come together. And because I've got a CNC machine that will fit this is a 42-inch long piece. My cut capacity is 48 inches wide, so I just really can't see any reason to sit there and sand that. So I'm going to flatten both sides of everything on my CNC first, taking about 5/1000ths at a time, just see how I go. One of the things that I would very much recommend is when you're doing an operation like this, so that you know when to stop, is what you'll see me do is I will take, and this is true of sanding, but also, this type of an operation. So I'm just going to take pencil and mark all across my surface here, so that way I know when I don't see any more pencil, I know I'm flat and can stop the process. So it's really easy to think that you could visually see, when it's time to stop without this, but this is just too quick, easy of a tip to not mention here today. So what I'll do now is just, I've zeroed my machine, or honed my machine, zeroed my workpiece, and I'm just going to turn this thing loose and do some other stuff while it's doing that. So this is a Onefinity CNC machine, and I gotta tell you, it's been a good ad for me in my shop. So this panel would be too wide to go through my 15-inch planer to flatten out. And the neat part is that, I can turn this thing loose. I'm gonna stay in my shop while it's running. I won't let it, run while I'm away, but you know, I'm free to do other things while this takes on the task of flattening out panels like this. So again, it's a great tool. Okay, and so as I mentioned earlier in the video, or in part one, I have to make 4 identical end tables and 2 coffee tables. So this is where a CNC machine really becomes like a helper in the shop. So I need to cut out 4 of these particular tabletops. This is for the end tables. If I had to do one, I might just do it manually, but you know, I need 4. They all need to be exactly the same, and that's exactly what a CNC machine is good for. And meanwhile, while the CNC machine is doing this very repetitive task, I'm off doing other things, working on joinery and the legs and all that stuff. So super handy, and I love having one in my shop. Okay, and so I've milled up all the leg material, the stock that I'm using for the legs on all the tables. And here I'm just using a simple stop block and cutting them all to their final length before I start working on the joinery. And again, using a stop block, you might be off a 64th of an inch in total, but as long as they're all off that 1/64th, you're good. Okay, and so now what I'm doing here is using a really simple jig. I just had a piece of MDF sitting on my table that I used some tape and CA glue to put some blocks so that I could not only make sure that they were square, but you'll see in a second here I'm also using some plywood scraps that are cut to the proper width so that I can maintain my spacing on all of these ends that are going to be part of the structure of the base of the table. And you know, there was an awful lot of holes here that had to be drilled, so I was you know, something like 60 or so between all the different pieces that were built. And you see there, I glued that one on backwards. Had to redo it. You know, not going to edit that out. It happens to all of us. So, but you know, main thing is to just make this aesthetically pleasing, and you know, using spacers in between your you know, pieces like that to just keep everything aligned, and a quick and simple jig that you just glue together temporarily, you know, is a great way to make sure that you've got repeatable results, or at least I found it helped me. Okay, so this is another handy tool to have if it's in your budget, but this drum sander on a project like this, you know, can really save you a ton of time and heartache. The other thing I would suggest to you to do is anytime you can pre-round over your parts before it's fully assembled, like I'm doing here, really saves you a lot of time when you're going to final assembly. And in this case, what I'm doing is just simply dry fitting or clamping things up, and I'm marking for my joinery, which, because this is going to be structural, I am going to use my domino on this part. Adds a lot of strength and alignment. You could also do it with dowels, or if you wanted to drill and plug, you could even, you know, screw this together if that's how you wanted to approach it. And coming up next here is where it starts to take shape. Now I've got the locations marked for the dominoes, and that's what this tool is doing here. And so this is going to carve out a mortise inside of each part, and then a part called a domino goes in between the two during your glue up. And unlike biscuits, which biscuits are great for alignment on things like panels and so forth, but what they don't add is strength, and a domino does. So just going to blast through these here because, you know, frankly, there's you know, a whole bunch of these that have to be done, you know, a dozen of them on this part, and then again on the other side of the legs, I'll be dominoing the stretchers in as well. So but you know, it really dowels can also achieve this, but they just take a good bit longer to do because of the way the jigs work, you know, having to drill all those out. And now it's going to start coming together and looking like something. So just simply gluing in my dominoes, then attaching them to the legs, and then after this, once this dries overnight, then I'm going to come back to it and we're going to put on stretchers. And you'll see that I have used a loose setting on the domino so that I could tap just gently in one direction or another for the correct alignment. So now at this point, what we've got are all of the end caps or leg structures that make up the ends of these tables are completed. Roundovers are applied where they need to be, and I have lastly cut out the dominoes that will mate with the stretchers. And if you can see by my thumb there, you're going to see a groove, and that runs around the interior perimeter, and that is going to be the location for the Z-clips that are going to hold the table on to the table bottom itself. Nice and secure, but it will allow for that seasonal movement that's going to happen. This is a hardwood project, so there will be some differences in the seasons. Humidity and temperature are going to affect it, so those Z-clips are just going to allow that tabletop to move without breaking. And just going to go through this. You don't have to see all 6 of them, but have to do 6 glue ups like this. And like I mentioned before, it's really starting to come together now. I can see the finish line from here, and I'm excited about wrapping this thing up and getting on. So, and here is another case of one of the reasons that I really enjoy having a CNC machine in the shop. This is not something I would have been previously able to do, but this Onefinity machine and the Jtech laser did a great job inscribing or burning, if you will, into the bottom of the table some special messages that had meaning to the church. In one case, it was their mission statement. In another case, it was just their favorite Bible verse. But I was really happy to be able to add that additional touch to these pieces of furniture for them. I think it really it really did a nice job, and I was glad to have it. Okay, and so at this point I have the tabletop flipped over face down, and I have the base roughly in place. There will be opportunity for adjustment. So how I'm going to attach it to the base are these Z-clips, and so the one end of the Z-clip is going to fit into the groove that I mentioned earlier that is cut inside of the stretchers, and the other side simply screws into the tabletop. And I will mention that it's pretty important to, especially at this stage, you've worked all this time to get it to here. What you don't want to do is split that top. So don't take the easy way out. Go ahead and pre-drill these holes. Only takes a second. But resist that temptation to skip that part, because it'll bite you. If you have luck like I have, it will certainly come back to get you. Okay, and at this point, all you simply do is, again, you just pre-drill your holes and then use short enough screws that they're not going to come through the top of the table, and attach your Z-clips, and you're about set. Okay, so fun fact about Odie's oil: goes a long way once you have your pad saturated. So I've used this pad now for 2 of these bases, 2 undersides, and a top. So this top is the last piece that I have to go. When I first started to apply it, I was really concerned that I was not going to have enough. But what I came to find out is that when that pad is dry, it just doesn't go on in the same fashion as when the pad is fully, got a bunch of the Odie's oil absorbed into it. So once this thing is absorbed, and has, a wetness to it, then just a little bit of this Odie's goes a good long way. I will tell you, gloves are highly recommended. There's nothing wrong with this. I don't believe it's non-toxic, I believe, and vegan free, and no additives, preservatives, nuclear chemicals or anything, but it's a damn mess, I'll tell you that. This stuff is really goopy. It's kind of seems like applesauce that you've left out of the refrigerator. for a couple of hours in its consistency, and has a nice smell, I'll tell you that. So the current plan has been, and I've been cycling through the different pieces of this project. You apply this and then wait at least 40 minutes before you buff it out. Continue to buff it in. I know some folks use an actual buffer. My plan does not currently include a buffer, and I'm just using the caveman method of hand buffing. So just gonna work this in real well so that it gets down into the grain. I will say that I had not built furniture previous to this out of oak, and you know, not for any particular reason, I guess. I just have preferred, you know, the look of walnut, and if it's painted furniture like desk bases and so forth, I've used a lot of poplar. I can tell you I'm not a fan of oak for furniture, but again, this project was part of a church renovation, and all of the lumber that you've seen me working with throughout this video used to be church pews that were 50 years old. So this furniture is going to have a neat story behind it. But I have to say, have not enjoyed the process of reclaiming the lumber, had not ever done that before, and did not particularly enjoy the machining process for this oak. Seems to me, and I don't know if it's this variant of oak, and I'll be honest, since you know this was a reclaim deal, I don't even know if it's white oak or red oak. Doesn't really matter at this point. It's church pews is what it is, but you know, found that it was really prone to chip out. Had to be really careful, especially because I had a finite amount of material to work with. So I got down to the end where, you know, the amount of material I had really drove some dimension decisions about what size some of these pieces were going to turn out to be. But happy to say that all I was left with at the end were, you know, very minimal cutoffs and drops. So, all right, so we're gonna let this sit here and cook off for about 40 minutes, and then I'm gonna buff it off. And man, we're gonna be just at that stage where it's going to cure, and then I'll be able to deliver this stuff back to the church from where the pews came. And you know, I'm excited to get this project done. So appreciate you watching. Well, hey, thanks for watching to the end. And before I get to the kind of the outro here, I would just ask, you know, that if you don't mind, if you enjoy the videos that you see in, do me a favor, just hit that like button and the subscribe button. And by hitting the subscribe button, you're going to be notified as future content comes out, and it would help me to grow the channel, and I would certainly appreciate it if you saw some value in spending time watching this video today. I'd also ask in the comment section, you know, what's a neat project that you have done, something that you've reached out to your local community and given something of, maybe it's your time or done something. I'd love to hear about that, and I think it's great that you do that. This was a fun project, and the neatest part is that, you know, the church, so I'm going to let this stuff sit here for, you know, I guess a few days to let the finish cure before it goes over to them. But one of the neatest things is that this church is going to get these back. These are their pews, and they're going to get them back in a different format where they can put them to good use for, gosh, decades. This is some really solid oak. Through the milling process, you know, it really turned out to be some, you know, decent wood. It's not fresh cut. These were 50-year-old pews, so this is old growth oak here. And I found, other than I think that oak has some characteristics when you're machining it, seems to have a tendency to chip out more. This is the first furniture that I'm doing with oak, and it wasn't that I selected it. That's what the pews were made of. So so I can tell you that I didn't love the machining process, you know, with this oak. However, you know, it has a great story behind it, and I think that means a lot. So I appreciate you watching. I hope that you would come back and see the next video by hitting the like and subscribe button down below. And until we see each other again, I hope that you'll find a way to reach out into your community and, use some of your skills for some kind of good work. So thanks very much. Have a great day.